Now we're live.
Oh my god. You just had to make it obvious that there was a take before this, didn't you? You just couldn't let go of that old, really horrible opening, huh? Yeah. Okay. Alright.
Welcome back to Weeb Reviews.
Somebody's got a case of the giggles today.
Oh yeah. Uh, so welcome to the Weeb Reviews podcast.
Holy shit.
This is episode 1. We had an episode before this. It was episode 0. It was our inaugural episode where we just basically introduced ourselves. But this is episode 1, which is our first actual review. So, Roger, Dodger, and Wilco, you sons of bitches. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's because you haven't seen this week's fucking show, which is Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken. And no, it's not my Eizouken. It's just Eizouken. I checked. So that's what we watched this week. As I said in the previous episode, this is a spoiler cast. We're going to spoil the series. I don't think there's much to spoil with this show.
No, not
really. It's not gonna ruin it if you know how it goes.
Yeah, I didn't have any less fun watching it a second time. It's in this show. It's very much not the destination that matters, but the journey.
Yeah.
It's fun to just watch them work through their problems. I guess I would like to start with how every episode starts. The opening.
Okay.
I absolutely love it. There's the stylization of the... It's one of the few openings of any show that I don't want to ever skip.
Right.
That's rare.
Yeah.
I skip the intro to most of my favorite shows.
I definitely agree. The intro is really good, and please stop dancing at me. The opening is very good. In fact, it seems, and I might be jumping the gun a little bit, but one of the reviews that I read after we watched the show, after we took all our notes and things like that, I went and I read through a bunch of reviews online so that I could see what other people were saying about it, so that we could then incorporate other people's criticisms and comments and things like that into our conversation. And a lot of people had basically said everyone was talking about the intro, but nobody was talking about the show. So,
right,
it's almost interesting that the intro. I mean, hell, I saw art of characters from anime, that I'm a huge fan of, doing the poses from the intro that I was like, I don't know what this is. So when I saw that in the intro, when I saw the episode, I was like, oh, fuck, that's what this is from. And
it's very catchy.
It's catchy.
Both eye-catching and ear-catching.
Yeah.
It's a very upbeat, I wouldn't say inspiring per se. That's not quite the word I'm looking for. It's kind of just gets you pumped. It's the kind of song that's gonna make you accidentally speed on the highway if you listen to it in your car. It's got a lot of energy to it.
I mean, speak for yourself a little bit there, because I don't know if I necessarily got the same vibe from it. I enjoyed it though a lot. I do think it was very poppy. I think it was very catchy, and it definitely gives a good. I mean, it's a good intro to the show. I don't know what other way to put it. But, there's... If you've been on the internet more than 10 seconds, you've seen something referencing the intro of this show, especially if you're in the anime community in any capacity, which I assume most people who are listening to this are probably somewhat in the anime community. But moving past that, I really want to take a minute, because you sort of referenced it when we were talking about the intro. I really want to take a minute and I want to talk about the art style the visuals and the audio are done in this series.
Mm-hmm.
It's very soft.
Yes.
It's designed to be very calming. It's a lot of, a lot of kind of like bold lines on a lot of things. There's a lot of sort of muted, soft colors. There's a lot of gentle sounds, really soft soundtracks, things like that. It's a very relaxing series.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fairly easy to kind of just sit and watch and not really I don't mean to say not pay attention, but kind of like just sit and watch and just have the images just assault your face in a very calming way. A very calming assault on the senses.
It's kind of like instead of trying to do like an exposition episode or a big long like explaining their backstory or whatever it may be for each character, instead of doing that, they just kind of assigned each character their own art style, like their own way that they get animated and drawn in the show.
Yeah, that's
so like,
that's fair.
The more like hard ass characters like Kanamori, the secretary,
student council.
Yeah,
secretary.
well, yeah, student council secretary, are both drawn like more sharply, animated more sharply, have sharper movements, whereas Mizuzaki is always drawn very elegantly and soft and clean lines and gentle movements.
Right.
And then there's Asakusa. I'm sorry. The names are weirdly. I don't know if it's just because I don't use them a lot in the show or what, but they're weirdly hard for me to keep in my head.
It was very frustrating just to take notes on this show. I think you would mention something about it being challenging to kind of sit and like take notes on this series.
It's more of like just like chill out, watch it, and relax, and not really have to. Because here's the thing: is there aren't any plot twists.
Yeah.
There aren't any big, huge, like crazy events that you're not expecting, and there's nothing to watch out for. It's just they're 3 high school girls in a film club. They're just doing their thing. They're just. I mean, watching them do those things is fun and enjoyable, but there's nothing like... It's not like an assassin is waiting or like... they're like gonna die because... I don't know. Like, there's no peril involved.
Let's we've been talking about this for a little while now, but we never actually talked about what is this series? What is Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken? And
right.
So, essentially, the series is about 3 girls in high school who get together and want to start making anime. For plot reasons, they're not allowed to join the anime club.
One of them.
Well, yes, but they want to do this together, so the 3 of them can't join
right.
it because they want to stick together. So the 3 of them can't join the anime club, so they try to make their own club. And it's essentially about them running into all these various obstacles while trying to produce this quality anime. And they keep running into issues, being high school students, being, new amateur animators, and just trying to deal with the fact that there's another anime club and, getting around the whole thing of like, oh, there can't be 2 clubs with the same focus, yada, yada, yada. And I actually think it's a fairly appropriate first episode for this review, honestly.
Yeah.
It's an anime about making anime.
Yeah.
And this is a podcast about an anime about anime.
Okay.
We're getting, like, anime-ception going on.
Okay. You spinning your top yet?
No, not quite yet.
Not quite in limbo?
No.
Okay.
So, Where do you want to go from here? Do you want to just jump into episode 1, and I'll interject notes as I have them, or how do you want to go about tackling this?
Most of my episode 1 notes are more about their character motivations, because episode 1 is kind of like more exposition-y, as you might expect from the first episode of any given anime series. Usually it's kind of just explaining what's going on.
Introducing the world, introducing the characters.
Making sure you're immersed in the world and understand how things work and blah. So that's most of what my notes ended up being for episode 1, was the different character relations. They meet Mizuzaki in episode 1.
Right.
They run into her where she kind of accosts them nicely.
Yeah.
Aggressively comes up, introduces herself, and runs away with Asuka's hat.
Yeah.
But it kind of just establishes their characters. So Asakasa is... I'm not going to say that the same way twice, am I?
Nope.
Cool. She's kind of generally kind of relatable to me, because she's anxious about everything, especially large groups, with which that doesn't really translate to me, but she's generally anxious and artsy and not actually like motivated enough to do anything with that. She just kind of does it for her own enjoyment. She explores new buildings. She draws out the blueprints for those buildings that then inspire her artwork. And she's just kind of got, I wouldn't say realistic, because it ends up not being true, but like a more like negative outlook on trying to actually do something with her art.
Yeah, sort of like this.
It's not that she...
When Kanamori comes to her and is like, well, why don't you like make an anime? Why don't you do something? And she's just like, fuck, you think I have the fucking resources to pull it off?
Right.
Like, what are you insane?
Right. It's not like she doesn't think her art is good enough.
It's just she's fully aware that she needs a team. You can't produce anime as a single person. And she's well aware of that. You feasibly you can, but not with any sort of reliability. Plus, with her talents, she's like, I know how to do these things, but like these things are beyond the scope of my abilities.
And then there's Kanamori, who she's clearly the motivation. She's
a very hardcore. It's interesting because she's a pretty hardcore pragmatist at times, but at other times she's, I don't know, she's a complicated character, and my feelings on her are very mixed. And it seems like a lot of the reviews I saw, people are very mixed on her, and we can get into that as we discuss the episodes. But episode 1, I had a couple notes that I took down for it, that just little things here and there that I'm kind of just like, yeah, what? So one of the things that I pointed out is you basically never meet Asukasa's fucking family. There's like one conversation with her mom, and you see her brother on screen twice, and her father on screen once, and he's mentioned once. And that's it. And it seemed very weird to me that at no point did you ever really... because you get more character development for Mizusaki's parents, and it almost seems like because the series starts with a flashback of Asukasa's childhood and how she kind of got into drawing and things like that. It seems like the show is framing her as the main character. And I know they're all protagonists, but it would appear that the show wants us to pay extra special attention to her. But yet, I would almost argue that Mizusaki gets most of the development as a character.
I can see that.
And it sort of seemed like a weird choice. You know, she was actually the character I liked the most through the whole thing. I kind of didn't. She's just the most likable of the three of them.
I can see that.
Yeah, she's hardworking. She's compassionate. She's caring. She does her best. I mean, she in the first episode they do a very, very good job of showing that she comes from an extremely wealthy household, and the other two do not. And most people in that society do not.
Right. Most people in that town are working class.
Yeah. And, you know, they do a really good job visually and through just different dialogue and things like that, kind of pointing out that she's very much out of her element walking around this town when she's from this very kind of, you know, high-strung, wealthy...
Not high-strung.
Well, she makes it seem, the way she talks, she makes it seem that she's kind of like... And of course you get to know that this isn't necessarily the case as the show goes on, but she comes across as like this, oh, you know, my family won't do this. My family sent security guards to my school to prevent me from going to an anime screening.
Right.
You know, it's like, it's very much designed to give you this, I'm from this really uptight life, this uptight background. And as time goes on, as she gets developed more, which, as I said, she gets the most development of everybody in the series.
Which I'm going to argue in a second.
That's fine.
We'll get there.
But as that goes on, you kind of start to go, oh, like, there's more complexity to this. There's more layers to this. This isn't as simple as she portrays it, because maybe she didn't even, you know, you find out she didn't know all the details going into it. And I especially like in the episode that does flesh out her background and the episode that you actually meet her parents, I really liked the way they handled that. I think it was very good, and I think that it was nice. It was kind of nice to see that, like, you know, her parents wound up becoming really likable, even though, like, at the beginning, the way she talks about them, you kind of inherently dislike them.
Right.
But they wind up being some of the most likable adults in the show.
Yeah.
So, go ahead and...
No, I agree with everything you said. I'm not going to say that that's not true. I'm going to argue that Asakusa also gets quite a bit of development in a very different way.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of learns to value herself and her work differently. She realizes that she knows she's essential to the functioning of the team of them working on the anime, but she doesn't, in the beginning, realize how important she is to it, necessarily. She doesn't realize how much hinges on her decisions and her completing these things, being the director and all of that sort of stuff. She knows, but she doesn't quite fully grasp it until Kanamori has to yell at her and drill it into her head that your input matters.
Yeah.
Your input is the most important thing. You need to figure this out because this is your thing.
Yeah.
You are doing this.
I can see where you're coming from with that.
And she does. She has a moment of just like, oh, wait a second. That's right. I have to do things.
I've made the argument that she does that like 6 different times throughout the series and never seems to have any long-term change from it.
No, I think she definitely does at least the last one. And each one of them has like...
Well, I mean, the last one was only like an episode or 2 before the finale. So it's kind of like you don't know if she really...
Yes. Because like it shows in the remainder of the product that comes out in the the last film that they released.
I suppose.
She
I mean, I think
she stops undervaluing her participation in it.
Yeah, but I mean, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. We keep jumping the gun a little bit, but a couple more things that I had kind of written down for episode 1. One, Kanamori's goddamn teeth. When I first started watching, the first time we started it, which this is the second time we've seen it, first time we sat down to watch it, I was almost immediately put off by the way Kanamori was animated. Because it's like, everybody looks like, I don't want to say normal, but like, at least, like, human. Kanamori is... She doesn't have teeth. She has a grill. Okay? She has a grill from a car on her face as a mouth.
Aside from her teeth, she looks like a lanky teenager.
Yes, but then she has a fucking jaguar grill super glued to the front of her face. She looks like Bane. Okay? She doesn't look like a fucking... It bothered me so much. I was able to get over it relatively quickly, but for the first, 2 episodes, every time she was on screen, I was like, why does she not open her fucking mouth? What is going on? So that bothered me. It just looked like ugly animation. And not like, oh, this is an ugly character that were animated, but it was like the animation itself was ugly to me. Which is the same reason that I haven't been able to watch Soul Eater.
Yeah.
It bugged me because it's like, I can, I'm going to jump ahead to one of the reviews. Because I think one of the reviews said something poignant to what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And it says, and I'm going to go back to this review later, I really want to point this out.
Okay.
So, the real Guy Fieri gave this a 6 out of 10 on my anime list.
Okay, great.
And the part of the review that I want to point out was when they said, so what this show branded itself before it started airing was about these 3 girls. One's tall, one's a frog, and the last is just a normal girl. And I think that is the most poignant way to phrase it, because you've got one character that's just, ambiguously humanoid, and then you've got Kanamori, who's got a jaguar grill taped to her face, and then you have normal girl. And it's just like...
I hadn't really
Alright. You didn't think of frog?
No.
Before now?
That brings new humor to when... was it Mizuzaki who got spooked by her and thought she was a kappa?
Probably. I don't remember. But yeah.
Who are supposed to be frog people?
Yeah. So there's that. The other thing is... This I actually took umbrage with twice throughout the show. And this was pointed out in 2 separate episodes. One was episode 1, and the other one was one of the later episodes. I want to say it was episode 9 or 10. And Asukasa, they go to all these lengths to make it be like, she has social anxiety, she can't talk to people, she doesn't know how to interact with people, she's really bad about strangers, and yada yada yada. But with both freaking Mizuzaki and Kanamori, she's immediately it's 10 seconds of awkward, and then it's totally fine, and then we're best friends. And it was just I kind of got it with Mizuzaki because they immediately started talking about anime, and they both just dove into this oh, blah blah blah, and I was like, okay, alright, that felt kind of weird, but not unnatural. But then when I saw it again with the flashback to when Kanamori and her became friends, I was like, no, I'm sorry, no. I know too many people with social anxiety that would never be able to do this.
No, I kind of understood it.
Okay.
A lot of social anxiety is you don't want to we don't want to make the first move. We don't want to make that initial reach for somebody else. But we're desperate to have friends and to have connections. So if someone reaches out and is like, here's a low pressure social interaction that we can use to branch out from, heck yeah, I'm gonna grab that reach. That's and the way Kanamori approached her was very, it showed that she had made an observation about her. It showed that there was something in it for her. She was going to get paid for this. It wasn't just a purely social interaction.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose.
It was, there was no pressure to talk because clearly Kanamori isn't all that talkative either.
Yeah.
So it's not that she was also anxious, it's just she's a low pressure person to be around.
It felt...
Makes sense?
Yes, but it just felt... It felt disingenuous. It sort of felt like they tried to create this complex character of, like, she's got social anxiety and she's got to get over the hurdles of this. And yeah, I mean, you know, you have it, and I know a lot of other friends of mine who really, really struggle when it comes to social interaction, and I was kind of hoping that they would do anything related to that, but at no point did they even really address it other than just saying it.
Also...
Except for at the Comet A thing that they went to at the end. But even then, it was like, once she had the bag on her face, she was like, okay, yeah, blah, 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 blah. It just kind of was like...
Well, I mean, the bag over the head is more symbolic than anything. It's a layer of anonymity.
No, I
stuff
get,
like
I
that.
get
But
that.
like,
But...
I understand why, if that was a real situation with real people that was really happening, that wouldn't work. But in the context of it being media, it was more of a symbolic thing.
Yeah, I get that. And it just... It disappointed me as somebody who was... I love characters. I love characters more than I love anything else in a show or a movie or a book. They are, to me, what makes the medium, whatever they're in, interesting or uninteresting.
Right.
And I was very disappointed at how flat a lot of the a lot of the character flaws seemed very one-dimensional, seemed very surface level. It's like, I have social anxiety, but any time I'm put on the spot and need to not have social anxiety, I just suddenly don't. And I'm just going to be able to rise to the occasion, do whatever I need to do.
Well,
and it didn't feel genuine, and it was upsetting for me because you never saw a character really... You never saw her struggle with that. And I know so many people who struggle with it, and it's like, show this. Show this. This is real. This is something people face. Tell this story.
I feel like it's less that she has one-on-one social anxiety, because she does a little bit, and it does show when she's interacting with new people. She has like several moments of hesitation, and a lot of the times Kanamori has to kind of push her along, gently or otherwise, to speak up and talk about it. But I feel like she has a similar thing to what you have, where once she's talking about something that she knows about or is passionate about, she can once she starts, she can keep going.
Yeah, it's like pushing a boulder down a hill.
Yeah. But you do see it in where they're presenting to student council, where it just kind of she's literally like hiding in her shirt with her hat pulled down as far as she can, and Misuzaki has to push her out onto the stage to get her to go sit down in the chair, and she just gets so tired of them berating what they've worked so hard on and drawing attention to things that aren't pertinent to the product, and she explodes. But not in like it's not. It almost, when she does it, it almost feels like she isn't talking to anybody.
It feels like an inner monologue.
It's
like
an outpouring of her own, of what she feels that she just couldn't hold in any longer.
Especially since she got very, like, kind of slangy.
Yeah.
In that, you know, and everybody's like, what?
It was a stream of consciousness.
What the hell are you saying?
I love that the secretary was able to...
Yeah, was able to just be like, I know what she's talking about. Wait till you see the product. Yeah. So, I mean...
And then, when they have, like, meetings with the art club and the robotics club, she does have a hard time speaking up initially. She does. And then they form a rapport, and she's able to keep talking, not at full throttle like she does with Mizuzaki and Kanamori, but she is able to get into it. She's a little bit reserved, but she's still able to interact.
I think it just bothered me as somebody who wanted to see a story about, you know, a young girl coming face to face with her social anxiety and having to overcome it because of her passions. That was not the story we got.
I don't think that's what the story was supposed to be.
No, I get that, but and I guess again this is my fault, and I guess I kind of do have some of the same criticisms that a lot of the reviews had. You know, I went into it, I guess, with the wrong expectations. Now, I'm going to say right now, I enjoyed the series. I don't think it was a bad series by any stretch. I got a kick out of it. I had things that bothered me about it, as I'm voicing right now, but I guess I went into it expecting, you know, a show that was going to be about the characters and their struggles and things like that. And that's not what it was, you know? It wasn't a character drama. It wasn't a drama.
No.
It was just a show with almost no plot, really? It was just kind of like, oh, this is a thing.
I mean, I feel like...
Oh, man. And then...
Isn't that just kind of what you should expect from a slice of life?
Although that might be the definition that I found for slice of life, there are enough other slice of life shows out there that, like, they at least still have something going on. They at least still have character growth and plot and things happen, you know, and like the characters face obstacles and have to overcome them, and you don't really get much of that in this series. And that's the thing that I just want to say that now, you know, if you go into this series, you know, you want to go watch this series, don't go into it expecting it to be like your typical show. It's a sensory experience more than it is a story.
Which I think I want to get into that next. The sensory, like the...
Yeah. Do you have any commentary about the advisor?
His beard is heavy.
Here's what I wrote.
Okay.
I said, the advisor is a useless character. He shows up like twice throughout the entire series and never even at the meetings with the student council or anything. I added an addendum to that. I said, he is at the meeting, but he doesn't say shit because he's useless. I stand by these comments.
I agree mostly.
Yeah, okay, he had one thing where he helped by saying, sometimes you just gotta play some video games. And that was it. That was the only effect he had on the plot.
I don't think it was, though. I don't think he was very useful. I will give you that. But he provided a small amount, but an amount of motivation at a couple of different points by just kind of being there.
That is the laziest.
No, oh my god, stop. No, listen, like, it's less that I'm being lazy about it, more like I just don't know how to word it properly.
Well, I just... he really only had like one remotely meaningful interaction with them. And that was with the when he was in the broken down car playing video games. And
I did have a note about that. Do you want to hear my note about it?
You said it was something about Nintendo,
He
right?
likes Nintendo games.
But yeah, there's a lot of things. It's hard for me to really talk about the show because a lot of the things that I'd normally talk about in a series that I guess are the characters, and there wasn't a lot to say. You know, there was small amounts of growth, but it felt...
Do you want to talk about the Robot Club?
I really don't. I don't think I ever want to talk about it. You don't want to talk
about Anna?
Here's the thing. I didn't like the Robot Club that much. But I really hated... Do you know who I'm talking about? The club I really hated. The fucking club. Dude, the head of the art club. I hated him. He was worse than useless. He actually put them behind.
Yeah, no, he was...
I hated him.
The girl was good,
She was sweet as hell. I have her fucking name written down somewhere. Kubo, yes. She was so sweet. I liked her. And I think it was kind of dumb of Asuka to not take her up on her offer to help. She's like, oh, is there anything you need me to redraw?
No, she did.
No, she didn't. Because then after, Kanamori was like, oh, that girl was cool, but you didn't have to take over every single one of these. And she's like, oh, it's just faster if I do it myself. Like, I can relate to that, but, you know. Since we've already gone so far off the rails, I'm going to just go down some of my notes.
Okay.
I'm just going to start reading off my fucking notes. The anime that they were making.
Oh, I remember what I wanted to get into next. I'm sorry.
Go for it, yeah.
The art within the art.
Yeah.
I love the way they show the absolute takeover of, like, a creative burst. How it just encompasses your whole, like, world around you, and that's all you can see. As I'm not an accomplished or very good artist, I have a hard time with a lot of artistic things, but when I am trying to create something and I'm trying to imagine it, I do tend to overlay it on the things around me. This is the easiest thing to do.
Right.
So you end up seeing, like, how things could interact with each other within your own world, and how I love that when Asakusa would get into her creative fits, she would end up dragging whoever she was talking to in with her. Be it Kanamori, who just is totally not artistic at all, but she was just kind of there along for the ride.
Yeah.
Or Mitsuzaki, who would join in, and the two of them, their collaborations ended up being so believable and lifelike because they were so compatible on that creative level.
Remember the fucking raccoon dog scene?
First there was a butterfly.
Yeah, I know.
I have a note on that particular thing.
Go ahead.
The ADHD is strong with this Asakusa.
It's true. It's true. Yes, I can relate. But jumping back to the anime that they make, it was interesting because, and I feel like I'm going to get crucified for saying this, but the anime that they were producing was very, like, Ghibli-esque. In terms of kind of the setting and, like, the way they kind of, like, framed the stories, with the exception... I mean, I might even just be thinking about the last one, but there's something about the way they did the art for, like, the robot one, and specifically the UFO one, the final one they did, was like really just Ghibli-esque with the cities coming out of the ground and stuff like that. It was very, that's all I could think of. And the plots for a lot of their stuff was really vague and very, and I know that's, and this is where I'm going to get crucified because I know that
that's literally internally explained.
Well, it's in Ghibli films. It's not like it's like there's the plot. The plot is important in Ghibli films.
No,
like,
no.
I'm
I understand that.
Crucified for that. But the stories they were telling, I mean, especially compared to a lot of anime that we do wind up getting here in the West, so the stuff that's popular enough to send overseas, it's not so vague as to be like, a girl's got a machete, she's gonna fuck up a tank, and it's like, okay. And then it's like, oh, there's a crab, you know what's gonna happen? Robot fight.
Well,
and it's like, okay. And I get the producing shorts.
Yeah.
So I know we probably don't get any real for any amount of anime shorts here in the West.
Asakusa did actually also explain the existence of the crab turtle. She explained where it came from. It was generations before that the humans had used them as cattle.
Yeah.
And so it was, they were surviving under the city in the sewers, and they got tired of, I don't know, something got tired of being underground.
But it's just kind of like, it was like, there's a lot of these really kind of like vague, like, things. And I appreciate it. I do want to comment on what you just said, because I, as somebody who does write, you know, films and things like that, I so much appreciated the way Asukasa created entire, very elaborate explanations for every little detail in the things that she was drawing and the stories she was telling.
Even in the windmill scene.
Yeah, it's...
She had, like, a species of sheep that was... There was a sheep that was on a hill in the background that she gave a name to the species and explained it. And there was ducks in the water that... She was very detailed in everything that she created. And
I have such an appreciation for that level of, like, that meticulous level of...
World building.
Thank you. Because it's really reminiscent of, you know, when I tackle a project, I want every character's backstory. I want every character's motivation.
And that's why I can't write, because I can't come up with those things.
Yeah, and even characters and things that are never going to appear on screen. It's like, you know, in this film, it's like, oh, I want to know why this character's mom is like this or whatever. The character's mom literally never appears on screen.
Right.
But, like, I've got an entire backstory for her and everything. And I can so appreciate that level of detail when it comes to creating a story. And I really had to take a moment to talk about that, because that stuck out to me a lot.
Yeah.
And I
Asakusa is a very talented creator.
Yeah.
There's no getting around that.
Well, I appreciated that it was there because she's not real. She's a character, you know what I mean? And the fact that they were able to kind of put that level of detail in, I mean, it just shows that the creators of the show, you know, they knew what they were doing. And although they may have created more of a sensory experience than an actual story, that doesn't mean that they skimped on the details on the things that were relevant to the sensory experience. Yeah. You know, and I appreciate that much.
Yeah. I also appreciate Asakusa's love for bunnies.
Yes.
It's very good.
You mentioned that.
It's very good.
Right.
Her stupid little doodle bunny that she draws on everything is very good.
Yeah.
The fact that she carries her bunny around with her still is very good.
That's true.
Very good. It's very good.
Okay.
I'm very excited about it.
Okay.
What?
Speaking of the attention to detail with the characters, one of the scenes that also really stuck out to me was Mizusaki putting the Band-Aids on after, like, when they were working on their first anime, and she was like, I want to do it all by hand. And she's like, my hands are so fucked up now. And she's like putting the Band-Aids on the train, and she's like trying to shake people's hands, and she's like wincing a little bit. I liked that. I liked that those little details, those little touches. It's like, these are things that, like, people who have done this, you know, they would put these in. Yeah. And I think those little touches might be things that would be hard, and maybe this is just me speaking out of my ass, but it seems like those little touches are things that people who aren't creatives, people who don't work on creative endeavors like this, might not be able to appreciate those tiny touches. I just really, I liked that a lot. You mentioned the music in your write-up.
Yes,
I wrote down, I mentioned the music once only, and I said that some of the scenes had a very odd use of music, and I wish I had written down which episode and which scene that was for, because there was one scene in, I want to say it was one of the early episodes, like episode 3, where the music didn't seem to fit what was going on screen. It was like a really like kind of like upbeat, fast-paced song, or it was like a really noticeable soundtrack that was going on, but it was just really mundane shit that was happening on screen, and it seemed to kick in right in the middle of a scene. And I was like, what the fuck was that? Like, it was the one thing that really, like, it was the one time I noticed the music, which is never a good thing.
I disagree with that. I noticed the music kick in every time they started into one of their creative endeavors. Okay. The music would change, and it was this really actually inspiring piece that would play through that whole thing, and it would ramp up until whatever climax happened in that creative space.
Allow me to rephrase, though. I don't want to say that it's never a good thing when you notice the music. It was the one time the music distracted me.
Okay.
Which is never a good thing. I phrased that poorly.
Right.
That was the one time the music distracted me from what was going on, because I was like, what the fuck? Like, it was just this weird moment where it pulled me out of what was going on screen, because I was like, where did this music come from, and why is it playing? Which is interesting, because they do talk a lot about how they want to put in music for the robot anime and things like that. And music's a huge, huge plot point with the third anime they work on, the UFO one. And it seems like a weird, just like a weird flub. And that could just be that it happened to stick out to me, but maybe most people didn't notice it. But it's just my second time watching it through, I was like, wait, what was that? I liked when they kind of made reference to the title of the show in the show. When Kanamori was talking about the student council and, you know, them kind of going up against the student council and being like, we got to be prepared because people around here have a saying, keep your hands off the student council. And it's like, she said it. She said the name of the thing in the thing. Nice. So, yeah.
I hate you a lot.
One of those moments.
I realized that the look I was giving you wasn't going to come across in audio medium.
So you needed to express
so I needed to actually
vocally that you hate me.
Voice my opinion, because I hate you a lot.
Okay.
I had a thing to say too, and my hatred for you distracted me from it.
Your hatred distracted you from what you were trying to say. Does it have to do with the keep your hands off the student council thing?
Okay, no, but that had reminded me of it before you unreminded me of it.
Okay, cool.
It was how everybody kept referencing the Eizouken as a public enemy.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
on
good.
Par with the Yakuza.
Yeah, they were like, there's a few people you don't mess with. The Yakuza and the Eizouken. It's like, fucking what? And I think a lot of that was because of Kanamori. Because she straight up acted like a Yakuza throughout most of the series.
No, that was like, I feel like that was like a cultural thing that they were trying to imply.
How do you mean?
Well, because it was like they were barely even established as a club when people started saying that. So I doubt it could have been because of Kanamori.
I
feel like Kanamori just accepted that role.
I got the impression that they were specifically referencing the Eizouken Club because one of the first things they say during their budget presentation, one of the first things the student council says is like, you guys are basically public enemies.
I don't know.
They straight up said that. So it seems like words travels fast around the school that like this club is like, you know, and even with the robot club, like the first time they had their first meeting with them, and then before they're gonna have their second meeting, the head of the club is just like, we need to take them down. They're a menace. They're a public enemy. It was after they'd already met them.
Yeah,
I do think that it was specifically in reference to them, which makes it more hilarious.
Yeah. I can see that.
Speaking of the presentation at the student council.
Uh-huh.
There was a big plot point where they were running out of time. They were trying to figure out how to speed things up.
Mm-hmm.
And they figure one of the corners they can cut is color.
Right.
So they said, manga is traditionally black and white. Let's just animate this in black and white.
Right.
They made a big deal of it.
Yeah.
A number of times.
Mm-hmm.
They go to do the presentation, and when... it's going to be hard for the audience to understand what I'm getting at without seeing the series, but essentially, most of the times that they present one of their animes, the audience gets kind of sucked into the world.
Right.
So they'll start, like, seeing the world around them and, like, being, like, in the film. And it's trying to emphasize, like, oh, man, look how absorbed everybody is in it and how, you know, we're sharing our world with these people and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It's very symbolic. But what I found weird as hell, when the audience got sucked into the world, like 3 seconds into it being on screen, everything was in full color. Why the hell?
I don't know.
What? That seemed like a really dumb choice.
I don't know.
It seemed like they should have just owned it and done that whole sequence in black and white. And I kind of felt robbed because the first time through, when they started playing it on screen, I straight up forgot that it was in black and white. That it was supposed to be in black and white. I straight up forgot. So you make this big deal out of it. And you have Asukasa who's like, no, I don't want to do this in black and white. I want to have it in color. And Kanamori's like, that's not practical. And it winds up being this big fight. And they wind up, you know, having to do that. And then they show it, and we see a full color version.
Yeah.
And not only that, but then after the fact, when they're and this was one thing I appreciated. As soon as they showed it, everybody's blown away and like awestruck, and the three of them are up there on stage like, oh man, you know, oh, we really should have fixed that. Oh, I didn't like that. Oh man.
Yeah.
And all they were seeing was the flaws. And as a film student, holy shit, I can relate. All I see when anything gets presented, or back when I was in school, all I could see whenever any of my projects were on screen was everything I did wrong. And everybody else would be like, that was crazy, that was outstanding. And I'm like, no, it was shit. Everything was shit. But they even pointed out at one point, they're like, oh, the black and white made it hard for this thing to stand out. We should have used more grayscale. So show that.
Yeah.
Show, don't tell. Show,
Yeah.
don't tell. If this is supposed to be a sensory experience, do it in black and white.
I agree. I think I agree 100% with what you said. I totally forgot as well that was supposed to be in black and white.
Yeah.
Which, now that you mentioned that, I think what they were going for is, like, you get sucked into something, you put your own imagination to it. But I agree with you. I think it's just me trying to that's what they were trying for,
Maybe.
what they were going for. But I agree. They should have just gone black and white.
It kind of robbed the whole meaning of all that conflict. It was weird to me.
Yeah.
What's the head of the robot club guy again?
Ono.
Ono?
Yeah. He's an
the
idiot.
passion scene,
Yeah.
which if you've seen the show, you know the one I'm talking about. The passion scene is probably the single funniest scene in the whole show.
See, I have a really hard time with that scene because I get secondhand embarrassment way too easily.
Oh god, I love it. Was so
it's so cringy.
Funny.
It's so.
They had a box over it, it was fine.
It's still cringy because I know.
The image of him running through campus wearing a cardboard box, shouting a poem about robots, and then screaming, "Passion!" They're just like sprinting away from security. Is one of the funniest single moments. I think it was the only moment throughout the whole show that made me genuinely burst out laughing. It was very, very funny, and the way they animated it, and the way they animated that whole sequence, even with where did I have it written down in here somewhere? But with Mizuzaki evading, Kanemaru giving Mizuzaki like directions over this radio, being like, "Oh, look out, you got one coming," and she's like running around with the cardboard box and ducking down. I was like, is this fucking Metal Gear Solid? She's just running around with a cardboard box. It was really, really funny, honestly.
That scene was funny to me because of the way they animated the running.
Yes, Mizuzaki.
I don't know why they decided to animate it that way, but it was so funny.
Well, not only that, but Mizuzaki has a weird run. And even when her parents came to see the robot anime...
Yeah, the animation she did for the running.
The animation for the run, her parents were like, "Oh, look.
Yeah.
And it seems weird to me as somebody who took like acting courses and things like that. It seems weird that that's the way she sees running, because as far as I know she's the only person that runs like that. So it was kind of interesting.
She's also the only person who uses chopsticks like that.
The chopsticks one makes some amount of sense.
Yeah.
Because, like, you don't usually just stare at people using chopsticks,
right.
But you see people run. And as somebody who's got such an eye for, like, detail of, like, movement, seems like it would be a weird choice for her to, like, make them running with their fists perfectly out in front of their face. It's like, all right. I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was funny. I find it funny though that her parents pointed out the run. They're like, "Oh, that was animated by her," but they didn't until they sat her down afterward with the chopsticks. They didn't.
They did react.
But they didn't. The comment they made was about the run.
Yeah.
Which was like
and the walk.
Yeah, but the run hadn't been brought to our attention as viewers yet, as something that was specific to her. It was kind of them saying that brought it to our attention. That was a specific thing to her. We just kind of assumed that she was just running weird when she was running away. But yeah, it was a little bit weird that it was like, why didn't they? It seemed weird that they just included the run part at all. I don't know, not a complaint necessarily, just an odd thing. The chopsticks thing I thought was a neat thing, but I think the run was kind of like, look, she's unique, and then just beating you over the head with it. It's like I pointed out, why is the secretary always standing with her chin straight up like at the sky?
It's not, I think after thinking about that for a little while.
Was it just that one scene?
No, she does it a couple of times, but I don't think I think that's another thing to keep in mind. This is a media, and not everything that the characters do is going to be realistic. I think that was more just to symbolize that she was looking down her nose at them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Like, she thought she was better than them, and she would look down her nose at them and talk down to them. And
it's weird, though, because of that scene where they're doing the sound hunt. And she goes, and she's just being, like, totally, like, chill with them.
But yeah, you notice she doesn't do that to them again after that.
Yeah. I don't know, it just seemed like if she thought she was so above them, it seems like she wouldn't have even stopped and talked to them. There was a few...
I feel like she needed more answers. I think she was too curious not to find out what they were up to.
Maybe. I wrote down a number of quotes. One of the quotes that I written down was by Tsukasa, who said to Kanemaru, while she was playing up at the top of a balcony or something, she said, like, "Don't distract me with details. You'll make me fall." I think that was an interesting quote because it's like, at the time she was imagining herself on a...
It was the scene when they were first going to their club.
I think it was, and she was imagining herself with the flying machine.
Yeah.
And Kanemaru was like, that wouldn't, like, oh, the wind pressure created by that would, you know, knock this...
to spin in the other direction.
Well, it was that, and then the next one was the wind pressure would knock down the walls of the building.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Don't distract me with details, you make me fall." And I think that specific quote, it was worded really eloquently because it's like, or really elegantly, because, you know, it's kind of like this whole, like, you know, Asuka's physically is standing above them on a balcony, and, you know, spoiler alert, does fall off of it and land on her face, and it was funny. But also, symbolically, it's like she's got her head in the clouds. She's kind of like on her own world, sort of. And, you know, don't distract me with details, you'll make me fall. It's like, physically, I'll trip off of this thing, but also, you know, symbolically, you know, I'm up in my own world. Don't bring me down.
Right.
You know, let me have this. Let me live in my world.
Right.
I really liked the way that was phrased, and, you know, to the point where I think it was the first quote I wrote down because I was like, I like that a lot. Asuka's bugging the shit out of me with, "We can settle on a genre later." I almost had an aneurysm when she said that.
I feel like she knew she couldn't do that also.
Yeah.
I feel like she knew that wasn't going to happen.
She was very frustrating when it came to a lot of that stuff. I'd written down later on that it's pretty ballsy of them to get so far into the various projects that they work on without having a fucking script. It's just... It's such a back-asswards way of working, you know, especially for somebody who, you know, I went to school to do film, you know, not animation, but film. You know, you had to have some kind of script before you went into it. And I suppose the equivalent for them was they had the storyboards. Yeah. But it was just the amount of times that they would get into trouble because they would go into a project not knowing what the project was going to be. And they'd start all this work, and like 2/3 of the way through the project, it's like, well, I still don't know what it is. And it's like, that's your job, dude. You have to know. Yeah. You have to know. And that bugged me. It bugged me not because I think it was any flaw with the anime, but it bugged me just as a creative, as somebody who does this, who works on project. I've worked with people like that. We're like, we don't need to know the answers to these questions. It's like, yeah, we fucking do. Like, yeah. I know I'm just pointing the camera, but I need to know this shit. You know, where's this going? Because, like, if I need to set the tone of the story, I gotta know how it ends. So that I know, you know, how I want these camera angles to look. How I want the visual aesthetic to look. So that was... yeah, that was... oof. Ooh. At first, didn't understand Asuka's military bag and hat. I was like, why military? I thought about it, and I was like, oh, wait. Her whole thing in episode 1. What does she say when the first time you meet her? What does she say she wants to be? It's not an animator.
Was it a scout of some kind?
No.
I don't remember.
She said she wanted to be an adventurer.
Oh, right.
That's the first thing she said. And throughout the series, she makes several references to being an adventurer, wanting to be an adventurer, and going on these adventures in her mind and in her art. Yeah. And bringing, eventually by creating anime, bringing other people on those adventures with her. And I was like, that's it. I thought it was just like a random, oh, look how quirky and weird, guys. And it's like, no, she wanted to be an adventurer. Of course she'd drop, you know, however much money on a high-end backpack and something. It was like 30,000 yen or something like that. And then Mrs. Zaki's like, I guess that's a lot of money. That's how much I fucking used to get for allowance each week, but okay.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, you spent 100,000 yen on that? It's like, no, dude, I spent 30,000. It's like, you spent all your New Year's money. It's like, do you not realize how much richer you are than people?
Yeah. I liked that too. I liked them like.
That was.
She wasn't. See, what I liked about it is she wasn't like gross about it.
Yeah, she wasn't snooty about it.
She was.
She
just was ignorant
didn't
to
know.
it. Yeah, which like sometimes it really just is ignorance.
That's what it was for me growing up.
Yeah, it's like once they drew her attention to it, she stopped mentioning it.
Yeah.
She stopped pointing it out. She just took it in. She didn't make any comments about like any of the she didn't make any outward comments. It was all inner monologue comments from then on.
I liked the scene with the couch. We can't talk about this right now. I just stabbed like a 1 million yen couch or a 3 million yen couch or something like that with a fork. And it's just like, she's like, don't worry, we're getting rid of it anyway. And she's like, yeah, I had the property clerk bring it down here. And Kanamori's like, you have one of those? What the fuck? I think it was an interesting way of depicting the difference between Mizusaki's animation interests and Asakusa's, with Kanamori serving as a really good kind of stand-in for like the layman's perspective on animation.
Yeah.
You have Mizusaki, who's all about fine, detailed movements and capturing, really intricate, really
human movement.
Yeah, really intricate human motion and things like that.
Like the art, the action of standing up.
Yeah.
And how swaying when you walk is easier.
Not even just human motion though, because remember the cup, the tea in the cup?
Mm-hmm.
Just the way...
And,
the way physics in the world interact.
Getting a whole bucket of water thrown at her head. Like
Kanamori... Mizusaki was like, yes, please continue to waterboard her because I like the way it looks. It's aesthetically pleasing to watch her drown. And I was like, this is fucking hilarious. Like, this is my favorite scene. Because it was like, hang on, do it again, spoosh, do it again, spoosh. And it's just like...
And of course, Kanamori was happy to oblige.
Oh yeah, and friggin'
any chance she
I was like, stop, I can't breathe. I'm dying.
Any chance she gets to physically abuse Asakusa is a chance she will not waste.
Yeah, plus Mizusaki's quote about, I don't want to make anime, I want to make animation.
Mm-hmm.
I thought also was a really good, really relevant remark on her part. To her, it's not about a story necessarily.
It's not about the finished product.
It's about the finished product.
I mean the finished product with all accoutrement. It's more she wants to do her thing.
Yeah, it's not about the package. It's about, I worked on making this character look as real as possible. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm going to be proud of.
Yeah.
But she does take, she does...
Oh, yeah.
She does work on the rest of it as well, but it's she's so meticulous about, like, these details and the smoke, the whole thing about, I can't make the explosion look good, and how they go back and they reference other animators' art when doing that, and I was like, yeah, like, that's all we did in film school, was just go back and look at old films and, like, critique them and be like, how did they shoot this? How did they edit this? How did they write this? That's all that is, and I like that they included that.
Yeah.
It's really meaningful.
A big thing that I really liked how the show did is their portrayal of teenage friendships. But, like, and then the scene at the very end with the sleepover, I've never seen a more accurate portrayal of... Not sleepover.
A movie night.
A movie night.
Yeah.
I've never seen a more accurate portrayal of that.
Yeah.
Half-eaten pizza... chip bags open and some chip crumbs. One of them is a burrito blanket, and the other two are just having a gentle conversation.
Yeah. I think one of the things that was funny is when they sat down with the Robot Club, and they were like, this is what we want, or the head of the Robot Club's like, this is what we want, this is what we want, this is what we want, and it was kind of like contradictory. And Asuka is like, oh man, like, that's not very realistic. And it's like, you realize the last animation you made was about a girl fighting a tank with a sharpened piece of sheet metal. You realize that, right? Like, a girl on foot blowing up a tank with a piece of sheet metal. That's what it was about. And you're complaining about realism. It's like, come on, man. Come on. You know, and then even later on, Asaka says, I wrote down, Asaka says aneurysm about the robot anime halfway through production is so frustrating to watch. You know, when halfway through, she's like, we should get rid of the robot. And Kanamori's like, I will rip your head off of your body. Like, and it's like, I want to also, please. It's like, dude, stop getting so hung up on the fact that it's not realistic. It's like, it's not realistic. You established that when they first pitched it.
Yeah.
It was bothersome, and then it seemed like she was like, oh, okay, it's not realistic. And then 3 episodes later came to the conclusion again, oh, wait, it's not realistic. It's like, did you forget the first time you came to that conclusion? Why the fuck did it take you 3 episodes to get back to where you were 3 episodes ago? And it was a weird, like, kind of, like, backtracking that they did with that.
I don't know.
I don't know. It struck me as odd. God, I've got so many quotes in here. One of the ones from Kanamori, there's no such thing as a door that doesn't open. A door's whole job is to open. Got another one, this project is only in trouble if you think it's in trouble. That one I appreciate, actually, as somebody who has directed before, because it very much is like, when you experience setbacks, they're really only setbacks, or like they're really only jeopardizing the product if you let them. I had an experience where I had to I had 90% of a project filmed and ready to go, except for the 2 most pivotal scenes. And when I was supposed to film those 2 pivotal scenes, there was an issue that came up with the actors that I was working with, where I basically had to replace them at the last minute. And I had to redo the entire project from scratch with only like 3 days before it was due. And I had been working on it for like 3 weeks. And I got 2 friends of mine who had some acting experience, and I said, I need you guys here 2 nights from now, because I need to reshoot this whole thing in one night. And I had to parse back the script from 9 pages to 2 or 3. And I basically just filmed the pivotal scenes and used that as my whole project, edited overnight, and then turned it in the next day, and it was done. And it was a damn good project. I was pretty happy with how it came out. Could have come out a lot better. Of course, I was sitting there during the premiere, and I'm like, oh, fuck, all I see are the mistakes. But, everybody else seemed to eat it up. These things happen. It's a... The quote about project's only in trouble if you think it's in trouble is a valuable piece of advice for anybody who's a creator. And I think there are a lot of quotes like that in here. And that's actually, the writing in terms of the character dialogue and the quotes, that's one of the things I appreciated most about it. And I think I'm only just realizing that now, how impactful a lot of it was on me. A director needs to be able to direct other artists. I tried to raise pigs for meat once. There's nothing fun about social media. True.
Accurate.
And you have all these things. It's like, yeah, a director does need to be able to direct other artists. And a lot of the times for creatives, for people who have like a media presence, for YouTubers and things like that, from what I understand, social media does become, a job more than anything else. I've heard a lot of people say on podcasts and things like that, like, if I didn't Like, I would not be on Twitter or Instagram or whatever if I didn't feel like I needed to be. And that's the case with this. I mean, you're running our Twitter because I refuse to go on Twitter, but I know if we want if we want to get an audience, we gotta have a Twitter. Mizusaki's backstory is really cute.
Yeah.
You know, the acting lessons were a really cool way to establish her artistic background, and the thing with her grandmother, that was such a cute story. Like,
very sweet.
I was getting misty watching it. It was really adorable. And then her, later on, you know, her animating during class. Like, she's got the book up, she's trying to animate on her tablet, and I'm like, oh, if that ain't the life, man. You know, I can't tell you how many times I'm in class and I'm, like, editing a project, and it's like, I'm supposed to be taking notes, and I'm just like, fuck, man, I really gotta, alright, if we're gonna fix the sound on this, I gotta do this, I gotta put this clip here, you know, it's like, yeah, it's too damn relatable.
Yeah.
I really like Misuzaki's parents.
Yeah.
You know, at the beginning they do try to paint them like they're going to be kind of antagonists, but I really like them.
I was a little frustrated with kind of like their portrayal almost, because it was her father who wanted her to not go into anime.
Yeah.
Because he thought that her mother wanted her to be an actress.
Mm-hmm.
But her mother didn't care.
Yeah.
But it was like, it's just kind of like one of those off-screen, like, they never communicate kind of things. And that was just kind of like mildly frustrating to me as a person. Like, just talk about it.
It's like, I'm in this photo and I don't like it.
just talk. Just like.
Well, it's also
keep
interesting.
on the same page with each other about, like, supporting your kid.
Well, it's interesting too because they're both they're both in acting, and the last time they were in a project together was right before she was born.
Yeah.
And they don't really get put emphasis on that.
Yeah.
But the second time around, I noticed it. And I'm like, wait, she's like around 16, and it says, oh, you guys haven't been in a project together in 16 years, and it's like, you know, you have to kind of take a second and go, like, man, like, this must be kind of hard on her parents, actually, like, with the careers that they had, now having to raise a kid. You know, now that she's finally becoming independent and she's going into high school and stuff, they're finally able to go and do things together again. And it's interesting that they didn't really get into that a whole lot. Plus, she's like, oh, I was always more of a grandma's girl anyway, because she was raised by her grandmother for a lot of her childhood. Mm-hmm. I don't know. There was a lot going on with her, and her backstory, and things that, and this is what I was getting at earlier, the kind of development that the other characters didn't get.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish they had gotten it. You get a little bit of Kanamori's backstory.
A little bit.
But nothing with, like, her parents or anything. Just her aunt and uncle.
Yeah.
So it feels like there was a lot of opportunities to really more further flesh out these characters that weren't taken. That's just going to inherently bug me as a character person. But
which makes me confused as to why you think it doesn't need any more seasons.
I didn't say... We got into a debate a little while ago about the ending. I didn't say that it didn't... It doesn't need more seasons. But what I was trying to say was, you know, it doesn't need more, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't benefit from more. Like, it could have more, but the argument I made was the last episode, the way it ends, it felt like it could easily be an ending. And your argument was more, it didn't feel like an ending at all. It was, you know, there was so much more they could have done. And it's like, well, you know, I mean, upon watching it a second time, did you see how they were, like, setting it up to be, this is the end? You know what I mean? This is the end of the show?
No.
I don't know how you didn't see that.
It took place over the course of one calendar year, pretty much. I think, because it's implied that at the beginning is the beginning of the school year, but maybe it's like a month or so in. But I know that their last thing happened over the summer with the
Right.
Comet A festival.
Right,
That was
right.
the
The
summer
comet
event.
thing was in the summer.
Even their second production was done in the summer because they had to fight for the air conditioning. So I don't know. It felt to me like there was plenty of room for more, kind of.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. You know, and it could have more, but I don't think it needed more. I guess.
I don't know.
And you know, the ending, I was satisfied with it. It was like, hey, look what we've done, and they did kind of leave it like, you know, we got a long way to go, and it's like, yeah, but they the episode 12 did feel like it could be an ending. To me, at least.
Felt like a disappointing ending if it was.
And I heard that a lot in a lot of the criticisms that I read of it. You know, a lot of people were really disappointed by the ending. They're like, yeah, it wasn't impactful. And I think that might be more what it was. It wasn't an impactful final episode. It was just kind of like, yeah, okay. It just kind of felt like every other episode. But the way
it showed their reach was growing farther, which was cool growth for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
She's always, Kanemaru is always going on about like, oh, this got damaged. The school better pay for it. This got this. You know, money, money, money. She goes and cuts the lock off the door to the place to get the DVDs made. Why?
Yeah, I don't know.
Fucking why? It's like, oh, it's funny, it's quirky, but it's like, why?
Yeah, no, that was weird. It was hysterical.
It was funny, but it's just like, again, it kind of goes into this area of like, you can't go into this taking this really seriously.
No.
Because it breaks its own logic so often. It doesn't make sense a lot of the time. And I know it feels like I'm bashing this show. I liked it. I liked the show. I promise I did. But, you know, I'd be lying if I said that I didn't have an issue with some of the stuff. I'd be lying if I said that I didn't have any complaints. One of my biggest complaints was the setting. I loved the setting that they were in. Why didn't they fucking talk about it? Ever. They never talked about the setting. Was it, you know, why were there industrial storm shutters on the apartment? What was it, a post-apocalyptic? Was it dystopian? What was the deal? Why was there so much flooded land? Why were there all these abandoned cars all over the place? Why was there trees and shit growing out of the cities? What was this? What happened? You know, when did this story take place? Tell me about this world. Why was there this whole ass underground fucking chasm of shops? They just, like, there's one scene, it's like, I'm looking down this thing and there's a giant staircase down to a pit of hell. Never gonna talk about that, really. Like, it's like, what is the deal with this? I want to know. You know? And it's like, these are the questions that they don't get answered, guys. I'm sorry, they don't get answered. I'm just as upset about it as all the people that are complaining about it online. You know, it's such a cool setting, and they didn't do... I shouldn't say they didn't do anything with it, because that's disingenuous. They used the visual setting, and the fact that even the characters were looking around going, man, this place is weird looking, in order to use those locations as the settings for their shows. Or for the last two animes that they did.
Right.
But they didn't ever get into the setting and like why it was so weird. And it bummed me out. It was such a cool world that they created. and they just, but it felt like it was just a coat of paint and an excuse to draw a cool looking city, without having to come up with any backstory for it. And it's like, for an anime that's all about coming up with backstory and explaining things, they didn't come up with any backstory or explain anything. What the hell? I feel robbed. I appreciate that the series takes its time to educate the audience on how anime is actually produced, and it really kind of helps to boost audience investment, create a level of respect for the struggles that the characters face. I didn't know how a lot of animation was done. I never really just thought about it or looked into it. And I know from what I was reading, there's a couple of the series that do a better job of getting into the weeds of how this is really done, but I liked the little tidbits that were included that were like, hey, here's a fun fact about this, here's a fun fact about this, here's how this technology works, here's how this works. And it's like, that's cool shit. That's getting me invested. I'm learning something. I'm not learning a lot, but I'm learning something.
Right.
It reminded me a bit of Girls in Panzer when I watched that, which I know is a show you won't watch with me, but it was like, I was like, oh, this looks trashy, I'm gonna watch it. And I watched it, I'm like, I actually kind of have a level of respect for tanks that I didn't have going into this. It was the same thing with this series. It was like, I kind of have a new level of respect for animation that I didn't have going into it. And I think that was supposed to be the main point of the show. And if that was the main point, kudos, because they did a great job. Another awesome quote. I'd say it's less about finishing or completing the project and more about the outcome of passion crashing against compromise and resignation. Creatives in a nutshell.
Yeah.
I don't know how you get more on the nose than that.
Right.
When they made the robot anime, that was annoying. Because I was like, they literally made the most generic fucking looking anime robot ever. And it looks nothing like the one they were originally commissioned to make. And I get that it was approved by the robot club, but why did they approve it? It's supposed to be about their robot.
It was.
No, it wasn't.
Well, they had to...
It looks nothing like their robot at all.
I guess...
It wasn't even close. It was 3 times the size. And it had a completely different design to it. And it had weapons and shit. So it was this interesting... It was an interesting, non-issue. It's here's the challenge. Create an anime about our robot. How about we don't? Okay. Alright, I guess. I mean... I don't know. When they first met... What's her name? Audio girl, I can't remember her name again. Domeki. When they first met her and gave her the audio demonstration of the stock sounds they were using with the running... Mm-hmm. Oh my god, I felt that so hard.
It was so funny that she threw
her. That was I wanted to. That's my reaction too. I can't tell you how many projects that I've gone into the editing, when I've been directing, and the editor is like, "Here's how it sounds," and I'm like, "I'm gonna kill you. This sounds horrible." It's like, what is this? It's like, well, these are the sounds I've got to work with, and it's like, take that microphone right there. Please go record new ones. I just... Oh, man, I could relate to that so hard. Plus, there was a weird thing with that where when Kanamori was like, oh, we'll let you stay independent and use our space and in exchange this and that and the other thing, they wind up getting into a lot of hot water about some of the sketchy stuff she's doing. Wouldn't it have been more sensible for her to say, hey, we'll, on paper, absorb the sound club into the Eizouken club. That way, you can have our space and it won't be weird. It won't be suspicious.
That's not what they did at all. That was the opposite of what they did.
No, that's what I mean. Is you would think that they would have said, "Hey,
you'd
we'll
think
just
that they
we'll
would.
just absorb your club, and that way."
She didn't want to give up her right as a club.
But the whole thing was like, they got into so much trouble because of that.
Yeah.
And almost got both clubs shut down.
Yeah.
If Kanamori was gonna do the sketchy shit she was gonna do, she could have just said, "Hey, we'll take you on, as a club member on paper." And in fact, she basically was.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole rest of the series.
Yeah.
She might as well have just been with the Eizouken Club. I guess maybe it was because she was taking up 4 club rooms, and maybe each club is only designated a maximum of 2. So it's like, hey, you keep your 2 as the sound club, and we as the film club will keep 2, and you can just use our 2. Maybe that was part of the reason.
I have no idea, my dude.
But that, again, they didn't explain it.
Yeah.
It's hey, here's an issue. Wait, never mind. we don't care. I think overall, all 3 main characters have pretty well established backgrounds as to how they got into the particular role that they're in the club.
Yeah. I think the weakest is oddly the main character, or the one that's kind of in the beginning established as the main character.
Yeah.
Like, all that's ever said about Asakusa is that she explores everything.
Yeah.
And we don't know where she was coming from when they moved to the city. We don't know anything about her family background, parents or otherwise.
Yeah. It's
like her mother was picking up her dad from the airport, but why?
Yeah.
Like,
it's super weird. It's like really ambiguous.
I don't know.
Shrugs, man.
Yeah.
The Robot Club's vocal auditions. It's it was like funny to watch, but it was also like painfully relatable.
Yeah.
It's like the one dude was getting so into it.
What was Ono?
Yeah, Ono. He was making all the sound effects, and Domeki's like, "Dude,
please don't
stop. We have sound effects that we're gonna use. Please stop." The Manta Ray outfit.
But why though?
Did they ever?
No.
No, they never address it, and it has nothing to do with the anime. I feel like that's the theme for so much of this series. Here's a weird thing. Don't expect us to talk about it ever, but here it is. It's like, okay, I guess. God, another excellent quote. Mizuzaki asking her parents, who are actors, have you ever been satisfied with a performance?
Yeah.
And they're both like, no. It's like, that's creatives. You create something and you immediately hate it. By the time it's done, you're like, I hate it.
It's not even like just creatives, because I've felt that with just about every dance piece I ever went on stage to perform.
I do have a complaint about Kanamori. I didn't have an issue with her for a lot of it. But as time went on, like, she keeps getting them into trouble over money. It's like they have a school-approved budget, but she keeps being like, oh, we need this money to get by. We need this. We need that. But they really don't, because they don't, like, anything that they would need, any resources that they would need, is provided within the school budget. They don't need that. And it seems like, honestly, she's sort of taking advantage of them. Because it's like she's using their creative talent to profit herself. I'm sure they're getting some of the money, but it's like, it's kind of fucked up. It kind of paints her character in a really shitty light.
I mean, she is marketing them and motivating them and getting them all of these gigs, and Jesus fucking Christ.
But she's working them to death. you know, she's working them to the bone. And it's like, over what? Because you want to line your pockets?
I don't know.
Like that, like, as I watched more and the second time around and seeing the way she was with a lot of this stuff, it bothered me. Because it's like, hang on, like, you're kind of a scumbag. Honestly. It's like, it was endearing the first few times. It's like, oh, I gotta get some money. You know, you owe me all these milk cartons or whatever. It's like, I'm extorting you for milk. Oh, haha, that's cute. But then all of a sudden, it's like you see them and they're stressed as fuck trying to hit these deadlines and shit. And for what?
Yeah, I guess. One thing that kind of struck me as odd for her character was when first episode, when they meet Misazaki.
Yeah.
She pays for the washing machine to wash her uniform that got strawberry milk spilled on it.
Mm-hmm.
She called it an investment, but then she never even, like, the only contribution Misazaki ended up making money-wise to the thing was the couches. Like, why didn't they, if they really needed the money that badly, why couldn't Misazaki ask her parents for help with it? Like, well,
she wouldn't have been able to at the time because it would have been for animation. And
well, not necessarily.
Well, because she was saying she didn't want them to know that she was taking part in the cultural festival because they would want to know what it was. They'd want to know what it was about.
Right.
So she was asking for money. They'd be like, what do you need the money for?
Yeah.
And she could have lied, but it doesn't seem like that would fit her character.
Yeah.
So I was thinking the same thing. I was like, why doesn't she just ask her parents for money? But the other thing, too, was, wouldn't she have a ton of money saved? Because she's like, I would get like 100,000 yen for New Year's each year, and I used to get like 30,000 a week for
That's assuming she saved it and didn't just spend it on clothing and stuff.
I suppose it's true.
And she's got what looks to be like a designer backpack.
Yeah. I don't know. I get where you're coming from. I kind of had a similar thing, but when I thought about it, I was like, I guess it kind of makes sense.
But, like, she didn't, like, Katamari never even, like, asked, which I felt was out of character. Like, she never even asked for, like, hey, can you pay for this thing? And, like, even if that ensuing conversation was, no, I can't because this.
Yeah. And she did have her own credit
had
card.
The conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, certain things she probably could have just, like, charged on the credit card.
I'm sure she wanted to avoid doing that as much as possible to avoid arousing suspicion. But,
yeah, I suppose that's true.
But, yeah, like, smaller things, like, maybe even, like, the tools.
Or the paper. Because the thing is that they wound up getting regular paper later and getting the 3-hole punch for it. It's like, you know. Oh, and I do want to say, I want to jump back to Katamari for a second, because I know I badmouthed her a bit, but when they did do her backstory was really good. And it does make her a bit more sympathetic, but even in her flashbacks, like, there's something still kind of sinister about the way she approached a lot of the things. And it's like, there was a few times I'm like, is she a sociopath? Like, I'm like, I can't tell.
She might be.
But I don't know. It upsets me to think about that question for too long. So.
She's not an especially violent one if she is.
Yeah, well. Yeah.
Not especially. Only to inanimate objects.
Yeah. I really appreciated Asuka's. Asakusa's. Oh my god. Asakusa's rant about directed energy weapons. I was like, yes, you can't see lasers. Thank you. It's like, finally. But then what's funny? The UFOs shot lasers.
Well.
I'm like, fuck. It was so close.
Yeah, Kanamori probably talked her out of the invisible ones.
Well, no, because they still used them for the human weapons, and then the
Kappas?
the Kappa weapons still had visible lasers. And I get it was to distinguish the two, but it was just like, oh, all right.
They might have been plasma instead.
But even she was like, and even plasma wouldn't. She went on this whole tirade about directed energy weapons and how they're unrealistic in their portrayal. I really liked Domeki's discussion about editing sound and how layering sound is you layer sound the way you would layer like an image. That's so true. Like when you're editing things, when you're adding sound effects to stuff, it's like it's all about layering things and layering things correctly and overlapping things, and
right,
you really do paint a picture with the sound. And then when she was physically playing with like the audio waves in that one scene, in one of the like the dream, like the I don't know what you'd call it, creative
cloud,
creative sequences, when she was physically like using her hand to like shape the sound waves, I was like, that's cool, like that's so cool. And it was that moment I was like, can she edit my fucking podcast? I need somebody who has that kind of fine control over audio waves. This is crazy.
She's an audio bender.
Yeah. What was that other club that they were with when they got fucking Rainbow Six sieged? They just fucking burst through the walls with machine guns. What was the point of that?
They were...
It was like this, the club was like taking school funding or something like that.
Man, I can't remember. It was like the...
It was so irrelevant, though. Because it was the first and only time we ever met them.
No.
It was.
No, I'm pretty sure that's who she was breaking into.
No, because they got expelled right after. That was what the note that the secretary held up. It said it was fast and it was in small text on the side, but the translation of the note that was next to it, it was a note of expulsion. And she turned to them and she's like, this could happen to you if you're not.
Oh, I thought she was just talking about being tased.
No. But yeah, that was such a random ass scene. It was just like...
I don't remember. It was something like production wise.
Yeah, she was going to them for something that they needed, some resource. But it was like, there was no... It was such a nonsensical kind of scene. It was like the manta ray thing and like all this other stuff that's going on. It's this thing that exists that it doesn't make any sense, so they just don't address it. And again, it's not a show about a plot. It's not a show about a story. It's a sensory experience. But there was just a lot of really weird choices. It's a very surrealist anime. It's not a literal series, a literal show. And I don't know, I genuinely thought that freaking Rainbow Six Siege busting in through the wall thing was another imagination thing for the first time I watched it, up until halfway through it. I thought it was fake, because that happens all the time. There's just you feel like a schizophrenic watching it. You're just slipping in and out of hallucinations. It's like, what? And oftentimes they don't change to the art style that says this is not real until a little ways into it. So you're like, what's going on? Why is this flooding? Why are these crayfish getting floated away? It was really weird. And then the fact that Domeki was already set up with a boom mic in the corner when they broke into the room, even though 10 seconds earlier she was sitting at a computer.
I don't know. I didn't notice that. It was
a really surreal scene. And I guess that can be said for most of the show.
Doesn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah, I guess not. By the way, dick move of the music person, the person that they hired to make the song, dick move of them to just change the song at the last minute.
Yeah.
And I even said, like, this seems to be the theme. All the people they ask for help keep putting them behind.
Yeah.
It's like the art club, like, fucked them. The music person fucked them. Like, this is... It was ridiculous. It's like these problems keep coming out of just, like, really absurd places.
Yeah.
Not to say it's unrealistic, but it made it frustrating to watch certain scenes, because it's like I'm angry. Like, I'm mad about this.
Well, you're supposed to be.
If I paid somebody for music and they gave me that shit, you know, I'd have sent, you know, Kanamori over to their fucking house, cut down their door,
Right.
kick the shit out of them. The shot of the three of them in the editing booth after working overnight, where they just, Kanamori walks in after being like, I've got somebody to make the DVD, and they just all, like, look over to her, and they just look like corpses. I'm like, yes. Like, anybody who's ever had to, like, edit a project totally can relate to that feeling. I can't tell you how many times I wound up being in the friggin' editing booth at school, just, like, somebody comes in and be like, we're closing soon, and I'm just like... Get out! The light, it burns! Like, I wasn't even an editor.
Yeah.
But oh my god, I spent so much time in there with the editors, just being like, hours and hours and hours, and finally somebody would be like, I gotta go get food, and I'd be like, I can't leave. I can't leave, go get food, grab me a hot dog or something, I don't know, I'll be here. Just the looks on their faces was so priceless. They all looked ready for murder. And then they're just like, it needs to be done in 45 minutes, and they're like, you fucking bet it will be. We didn't bust our asses like this to not have it finished. Did you notice the finale, the last anime that they did? That was the first one they produced that was shown without intercutting audience reactions.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't at all cut in anything else. It was just the anime. That's kind of what tipped me off, like, this is the last episode. Because they didn't need to show everybody's reactions. I mean, they showed everything blowing up after, but that was, again, that weird mix of, like, surrealism. But that was the first one. I don't know. It was weird. I also got big mad because another one of the things where it's like the black and white thing, they made a big deal out of, like, the voices. We need vocal auditions. We're gonna have Mizuzaki, you know, choose who plays the voices and things. There were no voices in the anime. Mm-hmm. There was one scene of a few people screaming that you literally could have gotten from any stock sound. Yeah. Anything. There was no voice acting in it. Yeah. There was no dialogue. What the fuck was the point? Yeah. These little details, like, they're making me lose my shit. It's like, I want to like it, but you keep doing these little tiny things, and I'm like, I don't get it. Don't get it. I want to like you. And I did, but I feel like I'm nitpicking, but I also am like, they went to extra effort to show these things. Then they didn't include them. Why?
Yeah. I don't know.
Did you get the ending of the UFO anime that they produced?
What do you mean?
Like, did you get how it ended? Like, it seemed like they were trying to convey a message, but I didn't get it at all. Maybe I'm just not smart enough.
Well, like, where did you lose it with them?
The ending...
Where they
like,
were,
like, I get they were blocking all the shots.
Okay.
And then, like, their own people would turn on them and shot them down, and then they just surrendered the other side? Like, where's the resolution? There was no resolution.
Well, that was the whole problem with them having to rework the whole thing, is they couldn't, the musical score that they were given didn't allow for a resolution.
I get, well, it didn't allow for a happy ending, is what it didn't allow for. But which I understand. I understand it wouldn't have a happy ending, but it didn't feel like it had an ending. Were they still fighting when those two were captured? Why were there so many ships just surrounding the dudes that crashed? It seemed like all the fighting had just stopped all of a sudden. Which I don't know.
They might have been investigating what this weird other was doing.
I guess. I don't know.
They were still fighting. The rest of the armies were still fighting.
It's just really, it was an odd way to end it, and I get maybe it's just way more obvious than I think, and it's just oh well, it didn't end, and it's oh, okay, the ending is that it didn't end. Yeah, okay, I guess. But it seemed like there was this Asukasa was oh, I'm gonna have oh, we can make a new ending. It's gonna be so much more impactful. It's gonna be so much more powerful. But I didn't get it. I don't think it. I get it was more realistic than the other ending, but it wasn't impactful. It didn't feel powerful to me. It just felt.
I don't know, I guess it also could
inconclusive.
Be read, I guess it could also be read in that the ones the others who were enlightened or whatever.
The ones that surrendered.
Yeah, they were surrendering because they felt they could accomplish more.
Maybe.
By surrendering, and they were hopeful that since they had just been working so hard to stop the two sides from fighting, that maybe they could make some
peace or something.
Make progress in peace.
I don't know, this is getting super meta.
Yeah.
It's getting really meta. Yeah. I put that in as a note because I'm just I don't get the ending. I don't get the new ending. And I feel like the final episode was a perfectly valid ending. I know you and I disagree on this. I want to jump into some reviews that I saw for it. I tried specifically to pick out reviews that were a lot more critical. I found a lot more. Now, I want to say this up front. I found a lot more positive reviews for it. A lot more 8, 9, and 10 star reviews. But I tried to pick out 5 and 6 and 7 star reviews just to kind of. A lot of the ones that were really highly rated were kind of just it's cute, watch it. Whereas the critical ones had a lot more in-depth to say. For reference, all of these reviews I got on My Anime List, because that's the only place I could find reviews for it, quickly. So, these are just excerpts. They're long, but they're even longer than this in their full context. I took out a few quotes, so I'm going to say who the reviewer is, so that, and say that this isn't full context. So that nobody accuses me of taking these out of context. But Rebel Panda gave it a 5 out of 10 on My Anime List. Eizouken, Hands Off the Motion Picture Club, is about people who love anime. They love it so much. They spend the entire show making anime. Eizouken wanted to capture the magic of creativity and the amazing minds of artists, and maybe it did for a few moments. The rest is an unfulfilled promise that left me feeling robbed. Throughout the series, the club struggles to earn enough funds to buy equipment and maintain their clubhouse. To alleviate this problem, they endeavor to make the best anime they can to prove they're worth a bigger budget. The end goal is to make more anime, better anime, and prove to everyone that they are worth watching. Eventually, this became the rhythm of the show. The three friends worry about some drama that always appears as quickly as it disappears. Their obstacles are resolved much easier than the show builds them up to seem. It's the same formula every few episodes, and it's never exciting. Their popularity is always reliant on Misuzaki's fame as a model. The pacing plateaued after the third episode. It was no longer the adventurous and awe-inspiring anime I fell in love with. As the episodes passed by, I realized I was just watching it to see the awesome opening. Over time, Eizouken transitioned into a boring tutorial on how to make good anime, but without being a model example itself. Midori often gets lost in thought while walking down the streets with her friends, imagining the world as an exciting anime. It's pointless to the show, but entertaining nonetheless. The scenes lost my attention. There is just no substance to them. The real-world setting has a great aesthetic. Everything about the architecture is confusing, but strangely beautiful. Buildings are a jumble of concrete in different shapes on a hill to make them visible. Rivers are all over the lowest level. If only this beautiful world was populated with something, anything, mystery, lore, anything worth exploring for. As far as we see, there's nothing cool about it other than how it looks. There were minor references to capitalism, socialism, and environmental degradation, but they were surface level, never explored in depth. In the end, Eizouken's emotional finale rung hollow, leaving the story incomplete. It drew me in with its childlike happiness of aspiring to achieve your dreams, capitalizing on my nostalgia, then it let my fondest memories fade away as it lost track of what it made it special. What do you think about that criticism?
I agree about the ending.
You agree about the ending?
It doesn't, like, I agree, it doesn't seem like an ending.
Yeah. What about the world building? Because, I mean, as I pointed out earlier, I felt there wasn't any.
Yeah. I don't know.
And again, maybe this person went into it expecting it to build a world and build a story.
Yeah.
It didn't. It just didn't
started
do that.
to. It started to. Like they said, they made allusions to it and they explored it and stuff. And there was moments of where, like, the offerings to the Kappa, that was a little hint at lore.
Yeah.
We are never told if Kappas are real in this world, and that's actually something that they have to do to keep safe or anything like that. It's just a thing that gets said.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just.
I mean, it was a good point. It was a good point.
No, it was a good point.
All the conflicts are resolved as soon as they come up.
Yeah.
And that's such a consistent complaint. Stark 700, they gave it an 8 out of 10. So I did include a positive review. They embark on this journey, not just to make anime, but also to learn what it really takes to be an animator. It's like following a boyhood dream together and see how far the journey takes them. But like most animation projects, the group faces challenges that they must overcome together. For instance, making an animated work isn't enough if they can't promote themselves. Marketing is a new field that the group wasn't equipped to handle given their lack of experience. Now, this is where I'm not sure this person watched the show. Because it says, luckily, they receive help from the school's secretary.
Oh, this is the one that's...
No, they fucking don't.
No.
Receive help from the school secretary.
No.
This is not...
No.
The secretary... And it's not... Okay, it's not the school secretary either. It's the... Student council secretary.
Yeah. Student body secretary, you could say.
So yeah, they receive help from the school secretary. No. Later in the show, Eizouken is also joined by Parker Domeki, a girl interested in their audio files, but takes a role to help their sound department. No, not interested in their audio files.
No.
Interested in protecting her audio files.
No.
That they wanted to use.
Yeah, it is also possible that they watched this in, like, a dub of a different language.
Yeah.
Or a sub of a different language.
Or that this person might...
translation.
It's possible that this is just a translated review.
Right.
But I want to make it clear that this review, if you find it online, this is not accurate.
Yeah.
Domeki, a girl interested in their audio files, but takes a role to help in their sound department. She does help them with their sound.
She remains her
but
own
she remains
club.
her own.
She's an advisor
club.
to their projects.
Yes. Together, this club grows more and more as we witness their transformation from a dream to a reality. Each individual member has their own skills that are imperative for the club to succeed. This includes Kanamori's business knowledge and negotiating, Asakusa's talent for drawing, and Misazaki's skill of planning and observing.
Well...
What?
I mean...
What? observing, maybe. But her skills are animation.
You still have to plan animation.
No, but that's
No.
not what it says.
I think that's what it means, though. I think that there might be...
But even that's not accurate, because Asakasa's the director, the one planning it.
Mizusaki still has to help.
Mizusaki does the animation. She's the lead animator.
They both had equal planning rights to that first short, for sure.
For the first one, yes, because she wanted to do... She wanted to do the movements. That was her whole thing. She's like, I just want to animate human movement. Mm-hmm. But it's like... She had very little to do with the whole planning thing. If anything, Kanamori was the planner. It's such a weird way to phrase what she did.
Yeah.
She was the lead animator. That was her whole thing.
Yeah.
She said so many times throughout the show, I don't want to make anime, I want to make animation. I want to animate. Oh god, this one hurt me. A running gag in the show involves Kanamori's love for money in hopes of making a maximum profit. That's not a running gag. That's her personality.
Yeah.
That's her primary character motivation.
Yeah.
Not a gag. It's sometimes played for a joke, but it's not a running gag. That's just her character.
Yeah.
Other running gags in the show deals with how the trio runs into trouble with the law, which at no point in the series ever happens.
Yeah.
I mean, the closest thing is when they're promoting the robot anime for the Robot Club, and the Robot Club launches rockets.
Yeah.
And the security club is like, you can't fucking do that. They get in trouble and they wind up having to run away. Mm-hmm. And then they get in trouble a lot with the student council.
Yeah.
But that's
also not the law.
Yeah, that's not the law. Like, they're not getting in trouble with the law at any point. So fuck if I know what they're talking about there. Astral Bread on my anime list gave it a 5 out of 10. And they said, I really wanted to love this show. It's just there's nothing to love, because there is nothing. Period. It is entirely devoid of substance. There is some glimpse of a plot about their anime-making school club, but that is not the point. The point is a love letter to the medium, celebrating the creative power of animation. These imaginative scenarios are indeed creative and pleasant to look at. You know what else is creative and pleasant to look at? Actual anime, where cool pictures have context and substance behind them. The very first episode of the show illustrates it. It includes an entire meticulously recreated by hand sequence from Future Boy Conan, complete with the characters being awestruck by how cool it is. Okay, Future Boy Conan is cool, so why didn't I just watch Future Boy Conan? What's the point of watching a fictional equivalent of a YouTube reaction video?
I'm gonna astral project to Astral Bread and strangle them. For that lukewarm take.
This show tries so hard to tell you how cool anime as a medium is. It fails to be an actual anime that is cool by itself. It also tries too hard to be artsy, coming off as artificial, insincere, and pretentious. Because the artsiness is not supposed to be deliberately constructed. Just listen to Yuasa talking about how they've made the main girls ugly on purpose, quote-unquote, to subvert the moe blob trend. Never mind that one of the girls is supposed to be a photo model. It just reeks of pretentiousness.
No.
Okay.
No.
You're gonna have a stroke when you hear this.
Oh God, no.
The main trio are one-note plot devices, devoid of any actual character. There is nothing to care about, empathize with, or be invested into. Nothing to look forward to either. If you've seen the first episode, you've seen the entire show. There are a few valid criticisms that I can pull out of that. But overall, I really wanted to include somebody raging on the show really hard. This person was big mad.
Yeah.
Because they went into it expecting a different show.
Yeah, like clearly, like this is not.
And this is what I'm saying with my recommendation. Don't watch this if you want a show with plot. This is almost entirely devoid of plot. It's just characters doing things in a sequence. You know?
Which, if you don't like that, don't watch it.
Yeah. I think the issue is the director, Yuasa, has a really excellent reputation for directing phenomenal anime. And I think people were expecting something similar.
See, I don't follow any of that.
I don't know. I mean, really the only studios I follow to any extent are Ufotable and, to a degree, Kyoto. And even them, not so much.
Yeah,
I've just seen a lot of their stuff like, you know, Kobayashi and,
they did Free, but
yeah, like
that's not...
Set in Netflix, Violet Evergarden.
Ah.
And a few other things. I'm sure I've seen a bunch more of their stuff too, but those are the two that stick with me off the top of my head. The Real Guy Fieri. Oh my God. I already read part of this, but I'll read the rest of it. 6 out of 10 on my anime list. So what the show branded itself before it started airing was about these 3 girls. One's tall, one's a frog, and the last is just a normal girl. Episode 10, the other downfall of the show. So we start off with the student council and the school teachers complaining to Kanamari about making a profit on the work they are doing. I have my feelings for both ends, but mainly towards the teachers, as their job is to align students the way that they are supposed to be. Like, that's their job. And my, it just feels so unrealistic and so hateful of Kanamari to just talk back to the teachers without a single consideration of what their position is at. I was somewhat raging at Kanamari, as it is so rude and utterly absurd for a student to be talking back so harshly towards their teachers. At this point, and there have been a few in previous episodes that instead of making an anime for the fun of it, it just became greed for money. That, to me, was truly disappointing about the show. What do you have to say about that scene from episode 10? You know which scene I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I do. So, I think that they definitely have a point. They're being a bit cruel. Now, I feel like she's that cruel with most people. She's very direct. It's less that she's trying to be rude. She just doesn't have a filter. She says what she thinks.
Yeah, she's very blunt.
Regardless of what that may cause her.
Yeah.
She communicates everything she's feeling regardless of consequence, is the kind of point.
I sort of get where they're coming from with talking about Kanamari's greed. I made that same observation and criticism. As far as episode 10, the scene with the teachers, I sided with Kanamari there, and I'm not sure if it's because the show wanted me to side with her, or if it really was because, she had a point. The teachers were they're like, you can't profit off this. And she's like...
But we worked on this.
Why? And they're like, because that's not how education works. And she goes, okay, but why?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, because we already answered that question. She goes, no, you fucking didn't.
Yeah.
And...
No, she could have gone about it in a much more...
polite,
palatable, civil way. She was very aggressive about it, and that didn't do her any favors.
Yeah,
but
no, I agree.
It's just not in her character to sugarcoat stuff. She just doesn't. She never has, and I don't think she ever will. She will just say exactly what she thinks. Yeah,
no, I think that's true. I didn't have any super big issues with that scene. I think a lot of it was them talking past each other.
Yeah.
whether that was intended or not, this person seems to think that it wasn't, and thinks that, I also feel like this person is, they're sounding like weirdly heavily like, you can't disrespect educators. And it's like, I've had some douche teachers, okay? Yeah. And some douche professors. Yeah. I got into an argument with a professor about whether carbon existed, okay? I don't need to hear, you always need to respect your teacher. I mean, you still respect the people, but like...
Yeah. They can be wrong.
They can be fucking wrong. Yeah. Like, just because you don't know what carbon is, doesn't mean it doesn't fucking exist, okay? So that's...
It's amazing that someone made it.
They had tenure.
Through their entire education, all the way up to certification to be a professor in a college. Granted, in an unrelated field, but still,
she was the head of our internship department.
That's basic science.
It's basic. It's basic reality. Everything. It's basic just knowing about the fucking world. Like, she's like, what is carbon? I don't know. What would a block of carbon even be? It's like, holy shit. Graphite, like, a diamond, coal, graphite. Like, if I lit you on fire up to fucking whatever Kelvin, you'd glow this color. Go fuck yourself. Sorry, that was... Ooh, sorry. I just... Rage.
It's been like 3 years and you're still angry about that?
I think it's been longer than that, dude. I'm just big mad. Big mad that I had to take that course. Christopher K. Claw on my anime list. I give it a 5 out of 10. Every conflict in this show has an immediate, easy resolution. The show throws a non-stop barrage of problems at our protagonists, but they shrug off every single one after a minute of deliberation. Eizouken sometimes starts an episode with the group being presented with a conflict, then Asuka will go on a walk or see something neat, have an idea, and that idea will fix the problem. Cue 15 minutes of the main characters going to the baths or wandering around looking at the town. The student council functions more like the show's Team Rocket, popping in to stir things up and then easily being bested, often off-screen. The show brings up the financial viability of anime, the social taboos of being implicated in creating it, and the restrictions imposed on the mobility of minors, the struggle of working on a deadline, and more. But rather than delve into these roadblocks, the show seems content to wave them aside with ease. None of our main characters are forced to really grapple with anything difficult. Everything they do takes 2 sped-through tries, if not 1. Asakusa is supposed to be lazy and easily distracted, a fatal flaw for the director of a production. But everything gets done on time anyways, and she's never forced to face it. Mizuzaki initially worries about how not to disappoint her high society profile while working on anime, but then everyone just immediately accepts it and she moves on without having to make any difficult choices. Kanamori resolves financial problems by waving her hands. Where are the sparks? Where are the moments where the characters fail and face consequences, or have to take a real step back to dig in deep and do some growth? This is the A-grade Yuasa show equivalent of a maxed out shonen hero who always wins easily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's cute.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I can't find... I liked this because I can't find anything wrong with what they said, really.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can agree with that. I mean, I think that they kind of boiled it down a bit.
I agree. And again, I think that the common thread between all these low scores, they went into it looking for a different show.
They went into it looking for the sports anime equivalent of a film crew.
Yeah, either that or
some
even
sort of
or even just a drama.
Yeah.
They and I get I think honestly they wanted a plot.
Yeah.
They wanted conflict. They wanted, and you said yourself, it's there's no conflict, there's just the idea of conflict.
Yeah.
But they wanted conflict. They wanted character growth through overcoming obstacles, and you just didn't have that.
No, you didn't.
And I think one of the things that they said in the most recent one, that was especially pertinent was oh, there's an obstacle? Well, Asakusa is just going to go on a walk and see a cute thing, and then be problem solved, and then it's just going to get hand-waved.
Yeah.
Because that really did happen. It happened through most of the episodes.
Oh, yeah. She had to reoxygenate her depleted brain.
Yeah. It's oh shit, a grasshopper. Problem solved. It's
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm way super, like, reaching back into the nethers of what we
go
did,
on.
like, 3 hours ago. Her social anxiety. They do address it because every time she has to interact with someone, she has to be away from people for, like, a while after. Which is, she can interact with people, but it wears her down.
Yeah.
Super quickly.
Yeah, I think my complaint... I think this person actually really well, like, summed up my complaint really well. Which is just, where is the conflict stemming from her social anxiety? Where is her overcoming that conflict?
Yeah.
It's not in the show. It's in a different show. That's where it is.
Yeah.
And whether that's a good thing, whether that's a bad thing, it depends what you're going into it looking for.
Yeah.
I think anybody going into it looking for a story-heavy, show with lots of character development, things like that, you're going to be disappointed. I think anybody, though, going into it knowing this is a sensory experience, you'll have no problem with it. Just understand that's what you're going into. I'd say overall it was an entertaining watch. I do recommend it for anybody who's got an interest in, like, animation or filmmaking or, like, cutesy sort of character interaction slice of life shows. That is if you just want, like, a sensory experience that's just cute and lighthearted, or if you're interested in animation or filmmaking or really a lot of creative endeavors, I think you can get a lot of enjoyment out of this. I mean, what's your overall? If you had to leave everybody with one takeaway from it, what would you say?
I don't know. I liked it because I too am a gremlin. So some on-screen representation of gremlin shenanigans was
Gremlinhood.
Yeah, it was fun to watch, and I appreciated it.
Who would you recommend this show to?
People who want, like you said, like a lighthearted, like chill, like really, like no expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Like you a lot of times you, like, sit down and watch something and people have been like, oh man, like there's so much of this and there's, like, so much of that, and, like, this is they do this in such a cool way. Like, it's a lot better if you just are like, hey, this looks kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Let's watch it.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think that's a fair.
Unless someone's like, the way they do the creative process is really interesting, which is a really specific suggestion.
Yeah.
But there's no fighting. There's conflict, but it's
resolved.
There's no stakes.
It's resolved almost instantaneously.
There's no real life stakes to it.
Yeah.
So it's more just like an exercise in conflict.
Yeah.
Less
the idea of conflict.
Yeah, rather than, like, actual conflict. There's none of that. So it's more just like we have the weekend.
Yeah.
Let's watch something
cute.
Let's
sit down and watch something cute. I think that makes sense to me.
I recommend it for artists as well.
Yeah.
Artists and people who want a chill time.
Yeah. So yeah, that's gonna wrap us up, and next week we will be reviewing Stella Women's Academy High School Division Class C3. Which is a really, really long-winded way of saying it's an anime about cute girls who play airsoft in high school. It's adorable. We've seen it before. I've seen it, I think, twice. How many times did you see it?
Just the once.
Just the once?
Yeah. I might have seen an episode or two when you were watching it with someone else. But...
Yeah. It's cute. It's pretty short. You can find it on Crunchyroll. I don't know if you can find it on any other, like, mainstream streaming services. You might be able to find it on, like, Funimation or something. Are you checking into that now? Yeah, so that's going to be what we'll be reviewing next. I say next week. It could potentially be a little bit longer. I did order new microphones, which will hopefully make the sound quality... which will make the sound quality better and will hopefully be here for the next episode. So yeah, feel free to, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything like that regarding anything we talked about in this episode, or if you want to ask questions for us to answer about Stella next week, go ahead and write in. Find us on Twitter, on Instagram, leave comments on YouTube. I don't know if you can comment on SoundCloud, but...
I think you can.
Yeah, just, get in touch. We've got all sorts of social media that you can reach out to us on.
I found it on VRV. I've never heard of that before.
Oh, Verve? Yeah. I think that's like a TV app.
It's on there.
Okay. So yeah, if you have that, you can check it out. We won't get into our feelings on it now, obviously. This is long enough. We'll talk about that next week. I think that about does it. So until next time, guys, keep watching that Weeb shit.